Right. What's the beef with the camera I want
I
to
was
get?
just saying that we have someone who listens to the podcast that is super anti R5C because he used it in like his, I forget what job he was working, but he was basically using it every day. And he's like, if you need it as a, he's like, for what it does, he's like, it's good. But if you're using it like it's an everyday carry, he like hates it.
What?
Which I don't know because it's a
But, like-
cross between a cinema camera and a just like a mirrorless
Photography,
camera, right?
yeah.
Is it like the lack of IBIS or like what? It's C-Log 3, but
Because that
I like
they have
C-Log
C-Log
3.
2. They have C-Log 2 on
When?
it. Yeah, because that was
that
one of my main buying points for it. Was like I've never gotten to play with C-Log 2. C-Log 3 is fantastic. Like I never have issues with exposing it. And like afterwards, like 10-bit is just fine, but it's also 12-bit. So I'm like,
because it's got the
Come on.
raw.
Yeah.
capability,
So
but-
half of it's just a fan, but like
which that's what we need though. Like we need a fan.
I know,
'cause-
Well, it's like the R52 has a fan attachment. Now.
Yes.
yeah, but the problem is you can't use external batteries with it. It has to be the like newest generation of the Canon batteries. So I'm kind of like I
Okay.
don't even want to buy into that system necessarily, because now I feel like I'm starting to want to branch out into like maybe Blackmagic, like with their in the new C80. It's
Yeah,
full
that's
frame.
pretty.
I haven't seen it.
So like the reason I wasn't gonna get the C70 was because it's Super 35, and I'm just like, not about that. Like once you shoot full frame, I feel like you can't really go back. Like, do you agree with that? Because
Yes and no, because one of my favorite cameras that I own is the Fujifilm X100 VI.
but that's like
And
your
so,
travel
like-
camera. So
Well, it's now like my everyday camera. I use it for, unless I'm shooting like an event or like doing client work.
Yeah.
I have my Fuji with me. Like it's literally so fun.
do you have your Leica in here?
It's over there.
You need to
Did you
go
grab
get
one?
it.
I'll get
Go
one.
get it and show it to
It's
him. It's so sick. So it's his travel camera.
Yeah.
He got it on an eBay auction for like $300, and it came with a waterproof housing too. So he's going to Costa
Because
Rica.
the one thing
so-
I wanted to get was I'm going to Costa Rica in like a week or two, and I was going to rent an underwater housing.
Yeah.
Because an underwater housing for an R6 is more expensive than an actual R6.
So much.
Which is ridiculous. And then I saw this camera on eBay, and it had underwater housing with it, and it was like the same price it was going to cost me to rent housing. And so it's like a little point and shoot, but it's like full frame.
What the heck?
And it shoots raw.
Shoots raw.
And the
video
quality
is horrible, but the quality is
of the pictures are
fantastic. Hold
insane.
on.
Like it almost looks like his R6. It looks the same. And the low light capability on it is
The
insane.
zoom's pretty decent.
Because
What the heck?
the low light
I
is
don't
really
even
really
remember this
good
model.
because
It's
the
the
deluxe?
yeah,
such
deluxe.
it's such a small megapixel count.
But here, let me pull up a sample image.
He does have to use 2 megapixel or
Yeah.
2 gigabyte
2
SD
gigabyte
cards.
SD cards.
So he had to buy like 10 of them.
Yeah, and they still cost like $20 even though they're 2 gigabytes because
Incredible.
they're so
It's actually
old.
horrible. So we need that SanDisk sponsorship still.
Dude, this is
But like the
this
quality
is a
on
true
it,
point and shoot.
It
like,
literally is.
not bad.
Oh,
Like,
that's cool.
zoom all the way in on her face. Like it locks in.
Was this one? So Leica used to have a different kind of sensor than like the CMOS ones that everyone uses now. I think
Yes.
it's called like a CCD. Is that?
That's-
Do you know if that's what this
That
is?
probably is.
Actually, I don't know, maybe.
What
Because it has like insane contrast levels like this,
and the it,
that's
like
really nice.
it has to
crazy.
it has to be CCD because there's no way you're getting a full frame CMOS sensor for
No, that's it.
$300.
Might be CCD, and then yeah, but I was
Which I
just
might be
surprised.
saying that name wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's
Hey,
something like that.
I mean I don't know either.
Like
We're
I was
just
just surprised
speculating.
Loki with like the quality of the lenses.
Yeah.
It's like that's what Leica's known for. I was like, dude, if I can get like a cheap Leica with that glass, I'll
Yeah.
take it.
That's what I'm saying. Like there's nothing more like. There's nothing that puts me on the struggle bus more than trying to buy a new camera, but then like new lenses coming out.
Well,
And it's not even that new lenses are coming out. It's just that I'm being made aware of so much glasses on the market right now. Like did you watch the Ari documentary thing I sent you
I
from
did.
Maddie?
It was so
Bro,
good.
it was so good. So it's like an hour long, and it just goes straight. He goes to the Ari headquarters, and they tell him everything about the large format like 65 millimeter camera and like the single guy who like rehouses and configures every single lens prescription for every single lens. So you can literally just be like, hey, I want this and this and this. I want donut bokeh here. I want like this, and he'll make you a whole set.
Insane.
And they're like PL mount or whatever Ari is, and it was just so interesting to watch, and it's just 55 minutes of pure nerdiness.
Dude, I just discovered like when you showed me like 2 weeks ago, like what an anamorphic lens is, 'cause I didn't even know that was a
Yeah.
thing. And I've been watching so many like full documentaries on like the history of the anamorphic, and like it's crazy.
And once you learn about like what anamorphic like the capabilities are, because it really is just squeezing a wider image and saving the quality, because you're getting the same quality and the same sensor coverage. It's just a wider spread. So like I always wondered like why Wes Anderson has such a nice like curved edge, and I was like, dang, he must be using like a 22 millimeter lens, but just like something is changing. But then I realized he was using all anamorphics, but since his lighting setup is so simple, he's just using like those mega, you know, like the mega lot big studio lights that are like as powerful as the sun. So like he's not getting any of the crazy like flares that are attributed to anamorphic lenses. And once you know about
not
them,
the J.J. Abrams, super sci-fi.
And you can like really attribute like watching movies, you appreciate it so much more because you can attribute, okay, here's what lens they used. And I never started doing it until I learned about like all the options that you can get for lenses and like the different bokeh styles you can get. And now every time I watch a movie, I like go on IMDb and look up like everything they used for like their camera, because it's so crazy. Directors of photography can just decide like for a whole shoot, they're like, this is what I'm going to do. And people just trust them. Like that's a level of skill that I hope to have one day for sure.
No, anamorphic's cool too. Like I learned about them in college because I was like looking into the history of like movies and all that. And it's like you find out basically like all of a sudden the movie industry was taking a massive hit because TV got invented.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, we could just watch movies at home. And it's like, oh crap, how do we get people to like come back to the theater? So we're like just playing with lens ways that they're like shaped or whatever. Instead of like spherical, it became, I think they just call it aspherical, but I could be wrong.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like,
right. Yeah.
It basically just takes what would normally be a 3x2 sensor or at that time film size and just like squeezes this wide image thing into that, which you then have to de-squeeze, which back then they would just use another anamorphic on your projector.
Which is so cool.
Yeah. So like it would just be a
genius.
distorted film image and then you would just blow it up. And all of a sudden you just have this like brand new experience where you just see these like huge worlds that they just weren't used to.
That's what I love. Like the only reason I really go to the theater is for IMAX. Because when I lived in Mexico City, I was a 10-minute walk from the nearest IMAX theater, and there's only a couple in Mexico. And like in Mexico City, I think there's only like 5. And so just having the opportunity to go see every movie for $10 in IMAX, I was like going to the theater like every week. I saw Dune Part 2 in IMAX.
IMAX is crazy
on the
too.
first showing.
That's
and
wild.
the like the what's it called? Like the cast, they did a premiere in Mexico City. So like
That's cool.
Mexico City is so popping right now with like all the stuff that they get to do, and there's so many times where I see like a concert is going there or like this is going there, and I'm like, dang, like I wish I could just go down and see it there because it's such a unique experience. Just experiencing it with a new group of people as opposed to like your friends that you are always with. It's so cool.
Yeah, IMAX being popular now is crazy too because like that started off as like a nature thing.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
go
like
to like
Planet
a
Earth
museum
or whatever. Yeah.
It was like the one thing that would be cool at like this random like animal museum and be like, oh, look at this nature documentary that's in this giant screen. And then all of a sudden, freaking Chris Nolan's like, I'm going to put one on my back.
Which is insane. Because those cameras are so heavy and they're loud. Like, can you even record dialogue?
I don't know how they did that for Oppenheimer because they did these up close things and the whole camera just sounds like.
Yeah, it literally does.
It's insane.
It's still shooting on film.
Yeah.
So it's like reels and like there's still someone like switching it out. And if you ever watch like, there's people on TikTok now that are just making like uploading videos to TikTok of like, oh, here's my IMAX setup. Like there's a guy I saw on TikTok who bought like an IMAX projector and it came with speakers, and he just bought it and was like, I got this steal on an IMAX projector and some speakers, and so I'm just gonna own it and like put it into my house. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like that is literally the dream, because you can just seeing something with crystal clear quality is untapped. Like that's just beautiful. It's like putting glasses on for the first time and you're like,
well, those cameras are like hundreds of thousands of dollars or something like that. And Christopher Nolan's broken one in almost every movie he's made.
Can't even buy them.
Just, which I guess it's a weird balance where I'm like, I'm sure they're like, yeah, please keep making this like format more accepted, but they're also probably like, dang it, dude.
Yeah.
Just
like
keep breaking our things.
That's why I'm low-key happy that Ari like large format 65, like you can't just buy them, because then it would just be like the rich kids are taking over, like like blah blah blah, and it wouldn't be as special anymore. And I think that's the main thing that I my main takeaway from like learning about lens construction and like what you can actually do with them, and like learning about like why would you rehouse like a lens to fit like a cinema thing, and it's like preservation and all this different stuff, and like back cap filters, like that's insane. And just learn like understanding that you like not everyone can just buy into that. That's the best thing about lenses for me, is like you can't just put a price tag on something and then it's accessible to everyone. Like with IMAX, you have to have like, you have to know how to de-squeeze, you have to know how to use like anamorphic to its full potential, and it's just a crazy thing.
Well, and then you get like directors of photography like Greg Fraser and others that like they're so intentional on why they use a certain lens a certain way, why it's housed a certain way. Like in the Batman, like they took an anamorphic lens and then did like detuning so it's softer on the outside, so just the center is sharp, which like was typically a big no-no. But because of creative style and the way that they're like wanting to tell their story, they went about it that way. So it's a strong vignette, strong like defocus on the out, and like then I mean even the way that they chose to like shoot it digitally, and then they like projected the digital image onto film so that you get natural film grain, and then like digitize it again afterwards.
Oh my gosh,
like
that's insane.
Like these guys get creative and crazy, like just to like better tell a story. Because I mean that's what's been fascinating too. Like I love the Helios 44-2 and all that stuff, and like it's got such a cool image, but it's also one of those things where I'm like, okay, like what am I best going to use this for?
Exactly.
Is it going to be better for this video? Is it going to be better for like this random portrait? Like, do people want that for their portrait? Like, just, and so it's a weird balance.
I had to shoot this past weekend, and I like said, I was like, how crazy do you want these pictures to look? Because like I can use my super sterile EF like 70-200 like L glass, or like we can get funky with it, and like we can use the Helios. And it ended up the Helios was the one that she liked, and we used that for 60-70% of the photos. And I was like, okay, now we're gonna do like your super classic sterile like hospital grade photos, you know, that are just like there's nothing really that special about them except for this is your classic senior photo. Like this is what you maybe your parents were like, or your grandparents were like, okay, when I think senior photo, this is exactly what I think about. And then I was like, all right, let's do what you want. And it ended up being like, okay, we want those insane backgrounds that bring her into the center and just like circle her. And the Helios is perfect for that, especially when you're shooting horizontally. Like vertical, really hard to nail focus. Wide
you almost
open.
have to be super center framed.
Yes. Yeah, very. And the way I shoot, I don't leave a lot of headroom. And so you have to be very careful with that. And I'm still learning the hard way sometimes on shoots. I'm like, man, I got to remember.
Like their chin's in focus, but their eyes.
Yeah,
out.
exactly. It's like, dang, your teeth are really shiny. It's like, wow, the tip of your nose looks very good. And it's like,
your eyebrows swirling a little.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But yeah, there's nothing more fun than like lenses. And Luke, you with your Leica, do you know what lens is on it? Like, is it just a Leica lens?
It's it's the same lens. It's on the Panasonic Lumix or whatever, which you were like, those are two different brands, but they made one together.
Yeah,
which they
you're
used
like
the Leica
Leica.
lens. So it's the, I don't know. It's like I know like it's one of those where the aperture changes like the higher you get, but I don't know. I don't know if you just read that as the name of it or it's the specs.
DC Vario.
I mean, it says Leica on the
Right.
bottom,
Yeah.
so it's probably a Leica lens.
I know it's like a glass, but
Yeah. And can you change it or no?
no,
Okay.
because it's the point.
So it is
so-
literally just a straight point and shoot.
Yes.
But it takes photos that are so good. Like that's the thing with like trends nowadays is like I used to be so about like lens quality and like perfection when it comes to like an image. Like I would spend so much time researching. Like I'm just now really diving into the difference between EF and RF glass and like where the difference is and like how they're tuned and like the autofocus and stuff, which is becoming less and less important, you know, like as you go, like autofocus. But now with everyone getting like everyone's getting their hands on like the G7X Mark III, like they're all just getting perfect images. And I'm like, great, now it's time to use the worst camera I have.
Literally,
so
I was
that
just
can
talking
make
about
it different.
that. It's almost like like I'm so used to shooting my R6 that I was like, I feel like the creativity and like funness of shooting is like gone away. Cause it's like I just have to press a button. It's perfect already. It's like that's not like fun anymore. But the more you get into manual glass, or I bought this because like I have to set my settings, and like setting the ISO on this is a pain. I have to go into like it takes me seconds. Like when I'm going to take a photo, I'm having to put way more thought into like what I'm doing, and instead of just like naturally just like going so fast, click and done.
Yeah.
No, I think getting that is a great call. I think every photographer needs to have a fun camera. I mean, my R6 is literally my workhorse camera or whatever. Like, I end up renting for a shoot or whatever. Like, that's work. But when I have like my Fuji, I'm literally just having fun.
Yeah.
35 millimeter is my favorite focal length if I have to choose just one for anything. And so like just knowing the limitations of like, oh man, I can't zoom in. I gotta go walk over to this thing. Or even like the weirdness of 35 and how it like, which I like the way that it hits its perspective. But having a fun camera where you're like, oh yeah, I actually like photography.
Yes.
Like that's huge and super important because I think like you're talking about, so many photographers, you just get burnt out. We're just like,
quickly.
I've been shooting the same photos of these kids or these random people. Like, oh yeah, now pose for this one. Great. Now do this one.
Yeah, and like you don't move your feet the entire shoot because you're just like.
You're just picking another different lens and swap it out. It's like
now kiss her forehead. Now put your foreheads together.
Yeah.
Now go ahead and kiss, but just smile.
Yeah. And like you're just Skylar's over there with her iPad just reading down the list, and you're like, this is so boring. That's why like for this job that I'm at right now, I've been challenging myself a lot to just stick to one lens for a whole day. So like. I've shot the past 2 weeks on this 28 millimeter 2.8 because it's super hard to shoot what I need on it. So like I have to get super close to people. I have to manually focus everything. So like there's a lot of movement going on. Like I'm taking photos of kids like playing like together. So there's multiple people. So I have to pull focus and like decide, okay, who do I want in focus, and just putting that pressure on yourself, and it's not stabilized either. So like I'm doing video on it as well. So just having that challenge, it makes me so much like more appreciative of my job because I'm like, I know how to do these things. So why don't I challenge myself to do them? And that's what I don't like about the new age of like everyone wanting to join in on photography but not building up their confidence via like prime lenses or starting with like a horrible kit lens.
Starting with, or like literally whenever we started, I was on like a T7i with a 50 millimeter lens. That was all I had.
Yeah.
Like I literally shot on that for like a year. It's all I could do. And you just like get so used to like the basics, and like the T7i's autofocus was so bad.
Yeah.
But there's even times that, like a couple months ago, I dropped my R6 and I had to get it repaired. So like I had to shoot a full concert back on my T7i again, and I was like, you know what, I can still do this.
No
If I didn't have those early days, I would have been like, can you imagine someone that started on an R6 like picking up a T7i one day and being like, oh my gosh, because you have to do so much more.
I know people who've rented cameras before they buy them, and they rent like the most insane camera just to try it out, and then they're like, shoot.
Nothing compares.
Because now it's like, oh great, I can spend $5,000 on my first body, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Wild.
Like honestly, the T3i, if you're getting into landscapes, T3i might still be the one for you. Because like that $200 camera, throw some super good glass on there, put it on a tripod. You don't need low light performance. Like who cares?
Well, and that's the thing, like a lot of beginners kind of miss out on is they're like, they want to spend all the money on the body, which like is important. So I'm not like disqualifying that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like the glass is really what gets you your image. And so like if you're wanting to just spend $1,000, but then you're going to put like this booty cheeks level like glass on there.
Literally.
It's like your image is going to be trash.
I have someone, I'm just not going to say so they don't know who I'm talking about them, but they just got like the R6, but they just like kept the kit lens with it. And I'm like, dude, like
Which kit lens? The 24 to 105?
I don't know which one it is, but I've just seen like the
7.1?
sample photos from it. I'm like, dude, like literally buy a 50 millimeter like 1.8
would be better.
and it'll be better than that. Like,
And it's $100.
you
It's
just
literally
don't-
$100.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh
No,
my goodness.
Yeah, that was like the first professional lens, which I guess the Nifty 50. I don't know how people want to call
professional.
it.
It is.
Yeah.
It's professional.
It's professional.
Professionally awesome.
Like
yeah.
some of my favorite images, especially when I first started it, and I would still use it until I sold it like this year.
Yeah.
Like
You
it's a
sold
great
it?
lens. I did, yeah.
No way.
Yeah, I
Hey.
sold a lot of the gear that I was just sitting in like my cabinet. I was
Right.
like,
Yeah.
I don't use this ever.
That's true. Well, because now I finally feel like I completed mine because I have my 70 to 200, 24 to 70, and then my 16.
Yeah.
It's like I never pull out my 50 ever, but
Mhm.
That's fair. But the 50, like it's a good vacation lens. Like if
Definitely.
you ever like, dang, like I just want to limit myself, but you want maybe like a larger focal element than the 16 or something, it's perfect because you can just like throw it in your bag, take it out for the day. Like I gave my girlfriend, or my fiance now.
Congratulations.
I'm engaged,
You did
guys.
it.
She said yes. So I gave her my old camera and its crop sensor. So when I put the 50 mil on there, it's like a 70, which is great because she has an 18 to 55 kit lens, which is just horrible. But like,
Gets the job done.
it gets the job done. Plus, like I taught her all the basics, so she knows manual. She learned it in 2 hours, which is super impressive. Like
Yeah.
she's super smart.
Only took
And-
me a couple of weeks.
yeah, literally, of me doing your
Doing
settings,
my
and then
settings
being
on
like,
every
look,
shoot and
look,
handing me
look.
the camera.
Yeah. So she's a genius for that, and she I had her bring her camera to a senior shoot that she accompanied me on, and she just took photos like the whole time and was having fun with it. And I'm like, dang, this rocks, because like
cool.
just seeing someone learn the basics the proper way of like having a horrible camera, having 2 lenses to pick from, and they're both kind of like, who cares? And granted, her 50 mil is a 1.4, so it's kind of like. It's kind of awesome, but it's also just like that thing is so like stopped all the way open, and even at 2.8, it's less sharp than the 1.8 STM one, which is so interesting. It's way more expensive, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do y'all have a favorite focal length? Have y'all kind of found yours?
I think like 40, 44, 45.
I don't know. Like, I would say like probably like I like love 24. I'd say like I shoot like pretty wide. But now that I got the 16, it's probably just like a phase I'm going through. I use it all the time now. Like
Yeah.
it's the greatest thing to ever happen. But
I shoot like 75 to 100 a lot. Like 100, I am shooting very consistently. So I mean, in terms of like usability, like 40. If I had to pick 2 lenses, I would get like the craziest quality 45 prime, or the craziest quality 100 prime you can get. Like just like the best. Like spend $1 billion jillion on it, and then get like a very artsy 45 or like a 48. Because like that 50 line, that's kind of when I feel like you really get into the like you're getting deeper into the portrait side of things. Where like 42, 44, like you can still be like, it's kind of wide. Like you can play with it, especially on full frame sensors. I don't know, but
Yeah, I'm similar to you, Luke. I'm kind of drifting myself more wide recently. Like when I started, like I really loved. I started on Nikon, but
nice.
rip.
man,
They're catching up. They bought red, which is weird. But
Low-key.
it is odd.
very odd. It was that's an interesting story too when you think about it. It's like they're like, no, we know that you guys have this whole like patent on raw video, so we're gonna like instead of do what everyone else does and do like a fake raw, we're just gonna make a real raw. And then Red's like, all right, well, we're gonna sue you, and they go, okay, we're gonna buy you.
Low-key kind of goated, I can't lie.
Yeah.
Just like total
Big
reverse.
flex, yeah.
Literally.
But so they're making a comeback. But
Yeah.
I started on Nikon on like this D5300 or 5600, and like the first thing I did was buy like a 35 millimeter lens on it, which I didn't realize was more akin to like a 48 to 50 or something like that
Yes.
with
Yes.
that. But so I was like, oh man, this focal length's really cool. But then when I tried like an actual like wider angle, I was like, this is nice. So like actual full frame 35, I think is my overall favorite because it's just like I feel very confident using it for portraits or for whatever's. But I've really started to like 28 as
Yeah.
well. Like
I love this
It's-
lens. You need
yeah.
you need to get this exact
That's my
one.
next buy right there.
It's only like $100.
well, I've got one that's got I think it's got some fungus in it or something because it
Not the
like
fungus.
goes out of focus really hard towards the end, which is cool because I've been shooting film this year,
Yeah.
and so like it's fun to play with this kind of wider angle lens, and then like it's also made me appreciate too like one with like it's super cool if you can nail shallow depth of field focus with
Yes.
film,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it made me appreciate more like okay, I'm actually gonna have like 5.6 or like 8.
Yeah.
And like
I've
try and
been
have
shoo-
like
I've been-
more in focus.
With this lens, because it's marked out on the lens,
Mhm.
I've been way more active with like changing it to 5.6, changing it to 8, especially on like group photos. And that's why I think like I'm finally like actually progressing with like I feel like I hit like a very stagnant time in this past like year and a half. and now I'm like, okay, now I'm full force like progressing
Yeah.
back to where I was when I was a beginner, which is
Well, because I think
very
we can
nice.
fall into a trap pretty easily of like, oh man, I have to have 1.2 and like everything has to be
shoot
super
wide
out.
open
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah.
Their nose has to be out of focus, but their eyes in focus, and it's like you look at photographers like Joe Greer or these other ones
Yeah.
that like shoot film, and they're like zone focusing, which is crazy. Like they're just eyeballing it. And, like,
yeah.
but they're like learning how to like how do you make a subject when everything's in focus. Like that's a really solid skill.
Yeah.
Like even older movies do that. Like most movies aren't shot at like 1.2 or whatever. Like Zack Snyder's is it Army of the Dead was shot like super shallow, and it's kind of weird. Like,
Yeah, it's kind of like, dang, like, did I not wear my glasses to
Yeah.
this movie?
like
Yeah.
what is it? Dave Bautista, he's like barely in focus, but
Yeah.
he's like the center of the attention. And then like you watch these older movies or like a Tarantino movie or whatever else, like, and how like they're typically shooting anywhere from like, I think shallow side for a lot of movies is like 2.8, but then they're usually at like 5.6 or like beyond, which is really interesting.
How do you feel about like spending the extra money to get like some 1.2 glass for like a cinema camera? Like, do you think that's worth it? Especially when there's options like Siri or whatever, and they're like dropping like 1.2 glass that's like $8,000 for the whole kit. Like, how do you do you think that's worth it? Or
It depends what you're using it for. I've especially recently, like I'm more into renting for jobs than
Yeah.
just buying something for jobs that I'm hoping is going to come.
Yeah.
that's
Like
valid actually.
usually like I shot an event a couple weeks ago, which I guess at this point is maybe a month or two, but I rented like a 51.2 and a 35.1.4, the RF ones, and they're first off insane.
the RF glass.
Oh yeah, like,
Are they just chunky monkeys? or
dude, the
what?
5.1.2 or the 51.2, that is a thick boy.
Yeah.
Like, I mean it was beautiful. The images were great. Because I was shooting this event, like it was a big corporate thing that was in like a very dark venue. I was like, I'm not about to
Yeah.
fire flash in this thing and just like ruin
Ruin the
everyone's
vibe.
experience.
Yeah.
And so like just stopping like wide open, and then using like shout out to like Canon for like having pretty solid ISO performance
Yeah.
in
Oh my
these
gosh,
cameras
yeah.
now.
Insane.
Like I remember like this is a tangent, but like when the A7 III came out and all of a sudden trying that and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm shooting at like 10,000 ISO. This
Yeah.
looks decent.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when like coming from like even like the original Canon R, like past 3200 ISO, I was like, this is trash.
Yeah.
Really?
Like it just fell apart so fast. But then like when they came out with the R6 and the R5 and all these others, like all of a sudden ISO capabilities are just way better in cameras.
I'm just constantly shooting like all the way up. Like
Oh, yeah.
I don't even care.
yeah. Well, especially now you got like if
Yeah.
it's really bad, like you got AI denoise
Dude,
tools now.
that has gotten so good recently that I was like,
Mhm.
because like when it first came out, you like look at it and you're like, okay, it looks like they painted this now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
But now it's like low-key, like I did it on one the other day. I was like, this looks fine. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll throw like grain back on the image.
Yeah.
And it
That's
just
what I
sells
do,
the
yeah.
effect like way better where you're like, oh yeah, no one will know.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's smart.
Especially when like previously like editing student photos where like they would come in and it's like, bro, they don't understand the exposure triangle, which is fine.
Yeah, it's
They're like
alright.
beginners.
Yeah.
But like it's like, dude, did you take a picture of a wall? Like where I don't see anything. And so you're like pulling the exposure up by like 3 stops and you're like, oh, there's kind of a thing.
But with Sony, you can do that nowadays.
Mhm.
All right, we're gonna take a break and then we can get into some of the bad student photos that I took. So go ahead and sell us the X100 VI because you low-key just sold me on it over there, and I'm ready to drop $1,500.
Well, sorry for your wallet.
Yeah, it's all right. It's Christmas time.
Well, so like starting with like I think every photographer should have a fun camera. Like it's so easy when all you're doing with your main camera, which at first starts as fun because then you're like you're loving shooting with it, and then but you start putting like all of this like pressure on like only getting to do photography when you're like getting hired to do it, and so it stops being fun. At least it kind of did for me. So like getting a fun camera, I was like, oh, this changes the game. Like, so I started with the Fuji X100 V back in like 2021, which was like before it like really popped off on TikTok and like everybody and their grandma started buying into the system. Because I was looking for something that took like professional quality, whatever that means, and then like was small and I could take places. But fell in love with the camera because they do there's a whole community built around like film recipes as they call them, which is like their color systems in the same way that like, you know, you have like your standard vivid or neutral and like other camera systems. They have literally their film stocks colors. And so I was just like, oh, this is fun. Started playing with that and building out like a film recipe. And it's essentially how I would edit anyway.
Yeah.
And so like I was like, this is great. I'm still shooting RAW plus JPEG, but now like I could just export the JPEGs to my phone and I can like post it straight away or send it out to people. And so it just became like my favorite travel camera. Cut to this year where like now everybody and their grandma has heard about the Fuji X100 VI, and like February hits and like out of nowhere Fuji's like, we're dropping the 6,
and the price had doubled.
Well, it online, at that point, like everybody was selling them for like $3,000 or like just below, and Fuji drops the new one, and it's like still like $1,600. So I immediately, like everybody else on the internet, was like purchase, pre-order. And it took like 8 months for it to come in. But what's so cool about it, like, and why it's honestly like my favorite camera right now, it shoots 6K video, which is wild.
Too much. Yeah, it's enough.
Like you can shoot it just as straight up 6K or as downsampled 4K,
which is amazing.
Wild. Same amount of dynamic range essentially as my Canon R6. Faster shutter readout, which is ridiculous. Like the rolling shutter is like performs better, which is kind of annoying at the same time. And then 40 megapixels, which is stupid. And like again, same thing. Like with the I can take these photos and it looks how I would want it. I'm not having to spend time in Lightroom, and I can just send it straight to my phone. I treat it a lot like how I was shooting film, where it's like, but even with shooting film this past year, like I would still take those like TIFF files because I wanted the largest scans possible.
Naturally.
Like I would still have to run it through Lightroom for it to be like usable. And so it still took time, which was fun. But now like I treat it like I would film, where it's like it has kind of slowed me down to focus on like this photo that I'm taking versus just being like just firing the shutter or whatever. Like I intentionally put it on like single shot. Or if I put it on multi-shot, it's usually like the lowest speed possible. And so it's just a fun lifestyle camera.
I'm shocked you're not shooting high-speed continuous plus on your Fuji.
Just pictures of my dog.
Does it have a video record limit?
I couldn't say for certain. I don't think so. Because a
like,
lot of cameras are moving away from that, which is nice.
If it doesn't have that,
the new podcast camera,
I'm buying it today. Because like that's the biggest issue right now with the podcast, and I've been trying to get my hands on an R5C for so long. But right now the price is dropping in a lot of places, and the price is like a lot of marketplaces have not leveled out their pricing. So like it's anywhere from like $4,800 to like $2,600. So it's hard to see it at $2,600 and be like, okay, I'm gonna spend an extra $1,000 just to get it from B&H or whatever, because I'm still getting it from a like certified reseller or a certified like seller or whatever. Like it's on Canon's list of like you can buy from here as a new camera. And so it's really hard to spend an extra $1,000 and be like, okay, whatever, because that's like an R8 or a full nother body or a full nother like stack of vintage lenses that I could be buying. And so that's why I don't have one yet, is because I'm like, shoot, like should I just keep waiting? Yeah.
Well, it's tough, and like that's what's cool with the Fuji to me is it's like it's also super unassuming. So like I can walk around and it's like people think it's either a film camera or whatever. It's like no one really questions if I'm walking around this like museum or this random thing with this. But if I had like my Canon R6, they're gonna be like, no.
Yeah.
Especially like once you add the like EF to RF adapter, you're already crossing that line of like a lot of places won't let you in, and then
so many like
stacking a
rules
lens
like
on top of
6
it.
inches on lens.
So like now you can go to concerts and take it, not worry about it. You can go like anywhere basically. Which is
and
amazing.
if you don't like the 35 millimeter, they've got like lens adapters that are made by Fuji that communicate with your lens or with your camera. They've got a 28 equivalent adapter, and then they also have a 50 equivalent adapter.
Wait.
Yeah.
Shoot, that's
so it's
crazy.
super, like the system's awesome. Now again, if you don't want a fixed lens, the XT5 is essentially the same thing, but you can purchase lenses. So if you wanted to like attach like a manual focus lens, like one of the Voigtlanders or something like that, like you could if you get the X-T5 in that series.
Does the X100 V not do any manual focus?
Oh, it's got manual focus.
Okay, thank God. I was like,
and what's cool too is like
what?
they've got like if you could put it in full manual and it'll like do a like fake rangefinder experience, which is pretty fun.
No, wait.
Yeah.
So how does that work? It's a flip up screen or?
Well, so you can have it be an EVF or just a normal, like you're looking through like a rangefinder, but it'll just track your autofocus, like in the old days where you'd look through like a prism.
Yeah.
Before the days of EVFs.
That's so sick.
And, but you can have it if you're in manual focus. It like puts a little like kind of screen where you line up like the black and white image. Like it's super fun, dude.
That's cool.
Dang.
Like it's one of those things where each
goes
time
my
I use it,
phone.
I'm like, yeah, this is a fun camera.
That would be such a good camera.
And then I put
Yeah.
again, like, because I try to treat it now like a film camera. I put, for a while I was having the black satin filter on that, but now I'm kind of, mentally I'm playing back with like Pro Mist instead of black satin, or at least maybe a lower level of black satin. But I've got the short stash filter by like Polar Pro on it now, which is like a mix of a quarter strength Pro Mist and a circular polarizer. And it's just freaking beautiful.
And they make
It's so
one that
nice.
small for the.
Oh yeah, 49 millimeter. You just
Oh,
screw on.
that's amazing. I love that so many companies are like, okay, 49, like we'll do that because
Yeah.
like you can get so much stuff, and like step up rings even are really easy to find. Because you gave me the advice, which I don't know if I should have taken it, and I don't even know if it was you. I think it was you, but I bought like a bigger ND that fit my camera because like you were like, well, you're gonna buy new lenses, might as well not buy it twice.
And then you never bought those new
And
lenses.
then I never bought them, and I've been shooting on the same lenses for
Yeah.
5 years. So I'm like, dang it.
It would have
Michael.
been good
And
advice.
they're both 77 millimeter mounts. So I'm
Tough.
like, are you kidding me?
Dude, no, I bought like the 82 millimeter mounts,
Yeah.
which I don't have any lenses that are that, so I have to step it up every time and step
Yeah,
down.
and it's low-key the
I
worst.
feel like I
And-
set you guys up for failure.
well, listen. It's all
if you ever
right.
buy bigger lenses, one day it might be good.
when I inevitably move to RF and get like whatever the 24 to 105 2.8 or like the 24 to 70 2.8, I'll thank you. I'll come back
One
because you
day.
saved me $200 in the long run.
You're welcome.
But in reality, I've probably wasted $200 on messed up film and like, so it doesn't even like
Dude, I love the 24 to 70 RF. Mine kind of makes loud noises now. I dropped it while I was shooting a wedding, which sucks. But it still works, and so like until it gives out, I'm not gonna send it off for repair. But
yeah.
it sucks when you're shooting video now, and it's like when it's focusing, it's like, and you're like, my camera's crying. Like,
My 24 to 105 f4 EF is the first edition of it, and so whenever I'm shooting with the Rode Video Mic NTG, you can hear the stable. It's a really good stabilization, like really good, but it's just like, and I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? But usually, like when people are talking over it, it's not a big deal. But I've shot a couple like. I shoot a lot of like funny videos for work, just like as like gag videos, and a lot of them have like silent moments in them, and it's kind of funny because you can just hear like in the background. And man, and you gave me a steal on that lens,
Dude,
so-
I have the like original 24 to 70 with like, so there's no stabilization in it at all. So it's just
and
like,
his is backwards.
so it's like when you zoom in, it looks
Oh,
like you're
that's so
zooming out,
annoying.
you know? And it's
And
like everyone's
I
like,
hate that.
they think I'm like taking a super tight, I should be shooting like a group of 10 people, and I'm like zoomed all the way in. Like, dude, what is he doing? Like, I promise I'm zoomed out.
and it has like a really whack like fat like
Yeah.
piece of metal on the front element. It's so weird.
It's-
Honestly,
I need
you
to buy
need
a
to
new
spend the
one.
money and just replace that
Just the
lens because
RF.
well, maybe not the RF necessarily, but even like an EF, like you could pick one up for $700 probably.
That's
so
true. I could probably sell it for at
like
least
300.
400.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah. One of the things that pisses me off with camera brands is like when they decide to intentionally do the opposite of what others do, and in terms of like focusing or
Like
zoom.
Sigma.
Yeah.
Sigma zoom is backwards.
Bro, like Canon and Sony are like, you're used to doing it this way? Nope.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to have you turn this way now or that way. And it's so like, I forget it every time because I'll switch between those systems pretty often. And it's just
Yeah.
like, oh God.
Yeah, have you ever looked at like Sigma cameras? They like the bodies they make.
Yeah.
They're the weirdest looking cameras I've ever seen in my entire life.
They're weird.
Like they just felt like they had to be like so like quirky and different. But also like
They're
I know
like
like a few
skinny
people who shoot on
boxes.
Sigma like bodies, and they're like the most like defensive, like worse than like people that are defending like any like the other brands. Like Sigma like camera body
Panasonic
people. Ridiculous. No, it's so great, and this is why Sigma's so great. I'm like, no, it's not that great.
I've never been more confuzzled than shooting with that guy that we shot with for the podcast,
Ridiculous.
and he was shooting on like 4 different body brands.
We were doing a podcast shoot, and we had like a Canon going, a Nikon going, a Panasonic going,
and
a Lumix or something,
and a Fuji.
and a Fuji. So we had to match. So then I got all these files. So I have to then match colors. But then this guy didn't shoot in like log
any
or
log.
anything. It was just delivered. So I was like trying to match all of these different colors. It was like the most ridiculous thing I've ever done.
Brutal.
I don't even know. I don't even know if he did his white balance. Honestly,
It was
So,
tough.
yeah, Luke was cooked. He was calling me. He was like, "Dude, this podcast is taking me 5 billion hours to edit."
Just on colors.
And even worse, like I don't know if you liked his shooting style, but he was shooting all the way zoomed in.
Oh
Like
my gosh.
so, he had one of those Peak Design travel tripods, which I had never shot on one of those. It is awesome,
Clutch.
even for
Those are so
video.
nice.
Even for video. So he would unlock it, zoom all the way in to where this amount of your face is showing.
Like
So
almost
your head is like all
Literal
that's in
headshot.
the
Literally.
literal headshot, all that's in the frame, nothing else. And he shot that as like one of the main angles.
Yes, because we had 4 cameras going, and then like our 5th was like the follow camera.
Yeah.
Just whoever's talking, you follow. And so every time I wanted to cut there, it's like
The
you're talking, guys.
The
like,
follow
right there.
camera was just that, and it was on a 70 to 200. But like we were in, dude, the room was tight. Like
Yeah.
it was probably about this size, maybe a little bigger.
little
but I
bigger.
was like, dude, who is shooting a 70 to 2? And it was all the way at 200.
It was
Like
crazy.
I was like, dog, we're not shooting a like football. Like, are you kidding me?
That's
Oh
ridiculous.
my gosh. There's some people that I'm just like, why do you do what you do? I don't understand.
Well, so y'all do both photo and video. Like, what? I've had a lot of talks with like guys that just do video or just do photo. What would y'all say is like the biggest benefit to you guys? Because I always try to explain it to them, like my reason, but I would love to hear like y'all's reasons of like the benefit of doing both photo and video.
Yeah, we're either really broke or really rich all the time. I mean, Luke can speak into it a little more in terms of wedding stuff, but for me, like, people are always super pleasantly surprised when I tell them, oh, I do the other one, and it gets my word of mouth marketing out a lot more because, like, most people either I don't really know, but in my experience, a lot of people need a photographer, but they know someone who needs a videographer. Not a lot of people that I know are like actively looking for a videographer, like in terms of my photography clientele. And so just being able to be like, oh, I know both. And then on top of that, using all my video techniques to shoot my photos is definitely my strongest thing that drives me to do it, is because like using video composition techniques in photography definitely allows me for more pure looking shots, where as opposed to like a lot of photographers use like, I'm not a big like right or left justification guy, or like using different like photography, I don't know, just like rules of composition. But because I do video, I'm much more comfortable with colors, and I'm much more comfortable with like odd shots that still end up looking very pure and very simplistic. Like I don't really shoot a lot of, like, my composition is just very tight, very balanced, and it's not really like, oh, I'm going to justify things this way.
It's more like center weighted.
Yeah, very, very center weighted.
I would say definitely doing video, like you're way more comfortable with colors. Like I started out editing on DaVinci, so like, editing like gamma and like all the weird words or whatever, and then you transfer that over to like the Adobe products, where you have like your midtones and shadows, and it's like, I don't know, I feel like I wouldn't understand those nearly as much as I do because after working with video. But then working from like coming from a wedding perspective and like money making perspective, I just did a wedding that I was just the photographer, and they're like, hey, like we want just like our first dance video because they didn't have a videographer. Like, can you do that? And I was like, yeah, it'll be like this much money extra. So it's like easier ways to like when you're custom making packages for people. But I will say the negative to that is like, how do I market myself as both? Because like I've coming up, I have a wedding I'm just doing video for. I have another wedding I'm just doing photos for. It's like people are like, oh, wait, so do you do video or photo? You're like, oh no, I do both. It's like,
yeah.
Oh.
And they're always so confused by that because one, they think the camera is different, and two, they're just like they don't understand how both the techniques are just so similar in terms of how you're, because like if you're shooting video, you can shoot it still. Like you can lock off your shots or you can handheld them and have them not move very much. And then like the only difference for video is you're just like, so it's like not, for me, it's not that big of a difference. I definitely, for the R6, I definitely prefer shooting video on it just because for some reason, just when I'm shooting in the camera, the video experience on the R6 is just so much better than the photo experience for me. Like when I'm shooting, I feel so much more confident shooting video than I do photos on it. I don't know.
I feel like, I don't know. I'm not really partial either way, honestly.
Like when I switch to video, I'm just like, oh, that looks so much better. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like that cinematic crop that it does, that it's like, doot, but that's just me.
Dude, I used to think for like the cinematic crop, I literally thought that they were just like shooting on like regular lenses and just putting black bars on top.
Me too.
It's like when I was like first starting the video, I would just do that and it's like literally go into like Premiere and like get like a black rectangle and just put it on the top of the model. Like cinema.
I'm pretty sure have you ever done that?
I've done it to like fake it, yeah.
Yeah. I think everyone has done that to be like, ooh, yeah, this would look nice.
So good.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, it's interesting because there's so many stories like that are just like, you can't do it if you aren't starting from square one. Like, I feel like everyone just needs to start from square one. You just need to put the time in, or else, like, you're going to hate it. Like, so many people are joining, like, they're like, oh, I'm picking up photography, or, like, they're like, oh, I just bought this camera. Like, that's cool, but, like, how are you going to learn? Because, like, YouTube is great and all, but that's because people are like, there's so many YouTube videos for that first half of like learning photography, and then after that you're kind of on your own, but you have to have built that experience to be able to be on your own. So it's kind of like a double-sided sword, or I don't know.
Yeah. I think I've heard y'all talk about it on the podcast before, but what are y'all's like thoughts on shooting for free or super cheap?
Oh yeah, we're very for it.
Yeah, I'm very pro. Like that's literally how like I got started shooting like concerts, just shooting for free all the time. And like so many like other experiences that you get from the ability of shooting for free. But then Cort had a good idea. He's like, just charge like cheaper prices.
It's like $15. Like anyone has $15 these days. Like you can hardly really get like a fast food meal, like a full, I mean, you can, but you can hardly get a box combo.
Why does my Chick-fil-A sandwich cost me $12?
Exactly. Like you can't go Chick-fil-A, get a meal for $15. It's like, I don't know. Just everyone has $15. So it's like, okay, you're going to get something, you're going to remember it forever. Yeah. Like who wouldn't spend $15?
It's also just like building those reps though, because genuinely you're not going to get, like you were talking about when people get these new cameras, like, okay, great, what are you going to do with it? And it's like, they just kind of sit around and wait until like someone's going to pay them. It's like, if you're not going out when you first get that camera, like shooting for yourself for fun, it's like, okay, you're not really, well, you don't want to be a photographer. Like, you don't understand it as an art form. Or, like, you're seen as a business more than an art form. And, like, most photographers see it is both to them. You know, like, there's the business side of it, and then there's the art side of it. And, like, for me, I lost so much of the art side because I did content like 299 days, and I was like, I hate this. Like, I'm so tired of just looking into the stupid camera and talking and, like, cutting all of these reels together. And then that's why I bought this Leica, because, like, I need something that's going to bring me back to, like, why did I get into this in the first place?
You need something to break it up all the time. Like, they're always, like, I have never shot on, for photos, I've never shot on a tripod, really. Holy cow, I'm yawning so much this episode. I've never shot on a tripod really in my life in terms of photos, and I've just now started like bringing tripods on shoots like all the time, and just stopping down to like a 20th or like a 60th and being like, all right, let's shoot at a really high f-stop, like do not move.
So fun.
Like I used to not worry about people moving at all, like only blinking, and I'd just be like, all right, and now I'm like, okay, do not move, and I literally turn on like the 2-second timer. So, like, even my hand touching the, like, shutter button isn't going to move the camera, because by the time I take my hand away, it's taking the picture. And just, like, having... I feel like really slowing down your process, and obviously like that's why everyone loves shooting film is you're so much more intentional, and that's why I love shooting, especially video and photo on like manual glass.
Yeah.
Is just because like one, this lens is super hard to focus because the focus ring is so tight. So you really have to like be one with the camera, and it's so much more enjoyable.
That's what's cool about film. Like you feel more one with the camera because you're having to like slow down. I'm making sure this is in focus. And then at least for me, it was like every other time it's still out of focus.
Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah. Well, and it makes you appreciate like the moment, which sounds like super corny. Like,
Yeah.
it sounds super cheesy, but it's like, I like all the photos I've shot on film. It's like which is the point of photography, but it's a memory. I'm like, this is a cool moment where like my wife and I are taking our dog on a walk, and like this is one of our last walks we did before we moved to our house. Like, and we loved this park, so this is a cool like capture of time.
That's beautiful.
And like, just like I caught one photo that I like. It was really hard to stage, but I like am tossing a ball to my dog, and he's like, and it's super cute. Like, I love it, and it's like with like some black and white film, and so like it's just it's super cool when like you're so used to like shooting these events and like you're in perpetual motion where you're like, I gotta make sure I get a picture of every single person
like, eating at the table or whatever.
Or one thing that I do like when I'm shooting weddings is I have like this, it's like an original Polaroid. It's like the first one step they ever released. So the only way you expose it is like this one dial that's like half white, half black, and you literally just have to eyeball it. Like there's no, it's like hit or miss. And so I take like 2 rolls of 8 like film, I guess. So I get 16 photos total for the entire wedding. And so then I specifically use those. Like I'll have Skylar, whoever's with me, like hand me that camera whenever I want. It's like this past one I did like the dad's first look, like one of the flat lays, or like their first kiss, like in the aisle. After I grabbed it on that, I dropped it. But it's like, and then I get to give those at the end of the day, and like, if I were to show you some of those were the worst looking, like blurry photos because like I messed up trying to judge where the exposure would be, but it's like it doesn't matter because like the moment's still there. And it's like still me.
That photo you took of me means so much to me. That one, because so we went out with his Polaroid, Jake's new film camera, his twin brother Jake. He had just gotten a film camera and some lenses from a thrift store. They were good lenses. Like he had a lot of options, and so we went out and like taught him everything, like taught him how to properly expose everything, and like taught him what all the dials meant and stuff. And we just went out and shot. And like I took video on that Nikon Coolpix that I have. Remember, like my first camera, and so it was just such a good day. And Luke was trying so hard to get pictures of these ducks. But, like, the thing with Polaroid is you have to put it in darkness, like, immediately. And so he would, like, take the picture and then run and, like, stick it in the bag. And then we'd be like, please, please, please. We wait, like, 15 minutes. We'd pull it out. It's just horrible. And so he, like, I was taking video or photo or something. And he was, like, laying on the ground. And I'm like, what are you doing? He was like, I'm taking a picture of you. And he, like, got this beautiful shot of I'm like, kind of in the shadow. But you can just tell that it's me just based off like the way I was standing in my hat and stuff. And it's just such a beautiful photo. And even shooting our engagement party on that Polaroid, dude, those are some of the best photos that like I've ever taken on a Polaroid. And that like I've never shot Fujifilm Instax or Instax or whatever it's called, but I got the 300 size, so it's the mini Polaroid, and then Morgan has the 1-step, but we couldn't find any of the film at Target. And just the intentionality that it is behind, like, okay, like everyone knows this is our one shot. Like I feel like that's the thing with digital photography is even the people you're taking pictures of, they aren't as intentional. But when you're taking it on like a Polaroid, a little less with a film camera because some people just don't know, like, oh, this is our one shot of this. Everyone is just so intentional in the making of it. And I feel like that's the same with like when you go to like an IMAX movie or something. It's just,
oh yeah, well there's something knowing like there's a limited number of shots on this roll where it's like I remembered the 30 something shots I shot.
Exactly.
Like, so I'm excited. I'm like, man, I hope this one's in
yes.
focus. Versus like when I shoot an event, sometimes I'm like, oh, I forgot I shot that one.
I took
like,
3,000 pictures. Like, are you kidding me?
Or like I mean, that's another thing too. When you're like shooting 3,000 photos and you're like, God, this one sucks, or you're so excited about one and then you put it in to like edit and you're like,
Oh my
oh, this is trash, and then the one
Yeah.
that you thought sucked is actually the better one, and you're like,
Yes,
oh, cool.
that's what we always say, especially about making reels. It's always the one you least expect is going to
Mhm.
be the best. It's going to perform the
So
best.
tough.
Like, oh, I didn't realize this was a banger. Dude. Like,
Yeah. I never realized how many photos I took on senior shoots until I shot a whole shoot on manual lenses, and I only took 700 photos, which is still a ton. It was an hour and a half shoot, so like, I didn't, like that's a lot of pictures. But with the amount that I turned back in, like that's a very normal amount for me. And I used to take like 1,500, 2,000, 3,000 pictures on like a shoot, and I was like literally just holding down the button because with girls, like when I'm having them walk and stuff, like there's so much little details that they notice, and they're like, oh, I want this one, or like I want this hair with this face and this. And with like holding down the button, you pretty much cover all the bases. But when I shot that whole shoot on manual lenses, I literally only had like 600 photos total, and editing that was a breeze. So I was just like, thank goodness. It was so nice.
yeah, don't come for me. But it is so much easier to shoot portraits for dudes than girls.
Oh, wait, no. The guys who hire me, they never smile. They're never excited to be there.
Well, I mean, they just don't care.
That too.
Like they're
That
just like,
too.
yeah, you got it.
No,
Sure.
the hardest shoots for me to do for like senior photos is like when the mom comes and she like wants to like be the photographer, and
Oh,
you're
gosh.
just like clicking the button. You're like, no, like sorry,
who's in
like,
charge here?
yeah, go
Yeah.
go stand in the corner.
Especially
like,
when the kid like is looking at the mom's camera, and you're
Yes.
like, I'm gonna strangle you right now, so you better stop.
Well, Cort knows this. One of my biggest pet peeves is like when I'm shooting a group photo and someone in the group decides they're going to do the countdown. I'm like, no,
That-
actually, I'm still messing with settings. Sorry about that one. So I'll usually like, it's kind of petty, but I'll put the camera down. I'm just like,
Yeah.
all right,
you
everybody,
done?
like, take back control of the moment. Because I'm like, no, you're not shooting the photo. Like,
Yeah.
sorry.
So awkward. Or they're like, I think I've done this to you one time. Oh my gosh, I did that on our shoot with me and Morgan. I like was like 1, 2, 3. And I was like, no, like I just broke his number one rule. But
It's not a hill I'm going to like
he
murder someone on.
he forgave me.
I knew
And
what
the,
you meant.
The
It's
photos look good.
Well,
so
thanks.
they were fire. All right, well we're gonna have to wrap up here. Is there anything else that we want to spill the beans on in the last minute? I mean, I got engaged, so that's
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a
craziest
huge
day of my life.
accomplishment.
It was so hype.
Was it? Give us like a 30-second.
Oh, okay. So basically, how it went was I faked a photo shoot. So I had taken her on some shoots the day before and then in the week prior, and I had even given her my old camera. Like all of these things were not set up for the engagement. It just happened to work out. And then she thought I was going to a concert that night, so she was like, "Yeah, there's no way he's proposing and then going to this stupid concert." Not that the concert was stupid. No, not at all. It was a great concert, but obviously I didn't go. And so I pull up, and Luke and Skylar were supposed to be there, and they couldn't make it. And so I just didn't tell her they weren't coming. And so she was like, that's so weird. They're late and like blah, blah, blah. And then the photographer that I hired, we're friends with. And so she brought her husband, and we like pretended we were going to get couples photos. And then she like posed us and stuff. And then we like picked out a spot like in the moment, and we were kind of like, yeah, like this is the one. And then I just hopped down on one knee and was like, gave my little speech. And
Freaking dope.
she said yes. And
Come
then
on.
it was the best day ever. We got some crazy good food after. And it was just a good day. And yeah. And everyone made it to the party. So except
Come
Luke.
It's a win.
So,
Dude, the
alright.
amount of like stress release after the
Oh my
proposal.
gosh, dude. I was so happy. But all right. I think our camera turned off. So we can be done.
I think we got
It's
a little
definitely
bit.
off. But all right. See y'all next time. Bye-bye.
Peace.